on, Lego, just let this topic die. It's been 7 years, and no, I'm not gonna let it die. In fact, I'm gonna do everything in my power to make sure that this guy stays relevant, and hopefully, maybe, probably not, but hopefully still, has the career that we thought he'd be able to have back when he was drafted in 2015. Let's go over the guy that was supposed to be in the same territory of player as the Eichels and the Marners and the Connor McDavids. Maybe not McDavid, but maybe just a step below. Third overall pick in the 2015 NHL Entry Draft, Dylan Strome. Now, Strome is a very interesting name because as we've talked about over the past few years, this was a guy that a lot of people thought should have been in that same territory of elite caliber first-line player, like the guys who were drafted around him have been. You take a look at the first overall pick in 2015, Connor McDavid. No questions asked, he's a generational player. Second overall is Jack Eichel, who is elite in his own right, but who still has more to prove. Third overall, you have Connor McDavid's teammate in the Erie Otter system, Dylan Strome, whom we're going to be talking about today. And then after Strome, you have Mitch Marner, who is a 90-point caliber player. He'll get 100 points one day, it's just a matter of when, not if. This was the top 4 in 2015, and Dylan Strome is the only guy that really has not established himself as anywhere near the elite caliber of status the other guys around him have had. Dylan Strome was an absolute monster in the Erie Otter system in the OHL. He was an absolute beast, a power forward playmaking center, a big dude who could score and absolutely waltz around the competition. But as his career went on, he never dominated the NHL in the ways that McDavid, Eichel, and Marner ended up doing. Instead, you had a weird path with Dylan Strome where he bounced around from Arizona to Tucson to Arizona. Eventually, he got traded over to Chicago when Arizona wasn't giving him an opportunity to develop and succeed, and his first season with the Blackhawks was fantastic. He had 51 points in 58 games played, under a point per game, and this season was seen by many people, myself included, as the sort of revival that Dylan Strome needed to really become a good NHL player. He had more points than Brandon Saad, he was top 5 in the team in points, and he was playing with his former teammate in Erie, Alex DeBrincat. Things were very good in Chicago for the first season. However, things didn't really persist in the way that you wanted it to. The season after, Strome had 38 points in 58 games played. The season after that, he had 17 points in 40 games played. He was playing down the lineup, and his name entered trade rumors once again. The Blackhawks simultaneously also started to go through a very aggressive rebuild, which saw the team trading away the aforementioned Alex DeBrincat. They traded away Kirby Dach, and they let some of their guys that were RFAs go unsigned and go to UFA status. Dominic Kubalik was one of the guys that ended up doing this. The other was Dylan Strome, who was honestly coming off a pretty good year in 21-22, getting 48 points in 69 games played. Do the math over 82, 48 divvy 69, that's a really nice amount of games played over there. And Dylan Strome was on pace for 57 points on the year. That's not bad in the slightest, and especially for a guy that was a former RFA whom you had the signing rights to. It just blows my mind even more when you realize, hey, the Blackhawks let this guy go away for free. They had the opportunity to keep his rights and maybe stick him around somewhere else in the lineup for next year, but no, they just didn't want to do that. They let him leave for free. Strome then signed a contract with the Washington Capitals. It's 1 year long, and he'll be making $3.5 million on this contract. And this article from Washington Hockey Now, published by Sammy Silber, goes over what Strome had recently said about his departure from Chicago. Take a look at this piece. Strome is on a mission with the Capitals. He wants Chicago to regret letting him walk. Link will be in the description if you want to go ahead and read this article, but looking back at the busy summer that saw him explore the trade market, move from Chicago to Arlington, and get married, Strome said that he is a new player, and he is on a mission this season to show what he can do, not just for himself, but for those watching him, and that includes the Chicago Blackhawks, who didn't make a qualifying offer this offseason for him, despite dishing out 48 points in 69 games. I think there's always something to prove, Strome said matter-of-factly. You know, when a team kind of walks away from you, giving you up for nothing, you obviously have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, and you want to prove that they made a mistake. They're doing a pretty big retool over there, and they got rid of a lot of guys, so you can't really take it too personally. But it's a business, and they made a business decision. And that's the way it goes. I'm excited to be in Washington. It was an interesting process of that free agency, but I'm happy it got done. Now, for those wondering, Dylan Strome, like Connor McDavid and like Jack Eichel, he's only 25 years old. So it's not really like this guy is maxed out in the prime of his career or whatever. He's still got some time to improve. Now, I know it's kind of funny because guys like Connor McDavid, for example, I mean, you talk about improve, what's the ceiling that he's got in the arsenal? 140 points, maybe? But for Dylan Strome, there still is something more to prove that he has not been able to showcase just yet. He signed a one-year deal with Washington in the hopes of maybe getting an extended role with that team, which will hopefully set him up nicely for the 2023 free agency period. In fact, if he really likes it in Washington, he might just stick around there. Who knows? But for Chicago, he wants to go out there and he wants to tell them, hey, you guys made a mistake by letting me go for absolutely nothing. Either A, you could have kept me around, I still could have been a good part of this team, but, you know, that's a little understandable as to why they wouldn't want to do that, because this team wants to kind of crap the bed for Connor Bedard. We talked about him yesterday. Yeah, he's a generational player in the 2023 draft, and keeping around guys that are pretty good, like Dylan Strome, who had a 58-point pace on the season, that's probably going to hurt your chances of being able to draft Connor Bedard. So that's okay. But just the idea that you're willing to let this guy go away for nothing, even though he was an RFA and you had the right to qualify him, you didn't even try to trade it away. Like, okay, maybe they did, but like they didn't get anything for him. They just let him go to free agency. And it was the same with Kubalik, who now signed in Detroit and who's looking to be a pretty good addition to that squad. So for Dylan Strome, hopefully things go really well for him in Washington. Strome not only believes that he can build on his skill set, but finally get a chance to win after being with teams like Arizona and Chicago. He has just one playoff run, which spanned 9 games in the bubble over almost 8 years in the NHL. And, yeah, you know, I didn't actually think about that. You talk about Jack Eichel and the lack of playoff success that guy's had, where he'd played with Buffalo this entire time where they kind of sucked, and then he went over to Vegas in the one and only year so far when they've missed the playoffs. But Dylan Strome is kind of in the same boat. Now, of course, Dylan Strome is not Jack Eichel. He's not a 70, 80, 90-point player yet. Hopefully yet, at least. But he was also supposed to be a part of that really good, talented group of elite forwards that just never really fulfilled that potential. And he has been on those bottom feeder teams like Arizona and Chicago this entire time. It's fast-paced, it's high-intensity, I think, Strome said of the team culture in Washington. There's a mindset in the locker room with these guys that we want to be a good team. We want to be a competitive team who makes a good run. It's my first experience seeing something like that, so I'm excited, and it's been a lot of fun so far. The article then talks about where exactly he's going to get placed in the lineup and the coaching and stuff. It talks about how he's playing with Connor McMichael and Anthony Mantha, and you know what? I'm going to go out there and say it. If Strome can really just let go and sort of play the way that he plays. He's a big dude with some good soft hands. He can make some great plays. And he's playing with Anthony Mantha, who is also a big dude. He's a really skilled dude, too. Sure, he had some injury troubles over the last few years, but when Anthony Mantha is at his best, he is a sub-point-per-game-ish caliber guy, a guy that might be able to get upwards of 60 points on a full 82-game season. And Connor McMichael is an absolute wizard, the best OHL player a few years ago, who really translated properly into the AHL, and who had a pretty rough rookie season in the NHL too. He had 18 points in 68 games played last year, but with the skills that Connor McMichael has at his disposal, the extremely impressive hockey IQ, the skills, how he's able to read the plays unfolding in front of him, we had seen that all at every league that he's played in except for the NHL. I feel like it's time for him to break out as well. And I don't know, man, I'm kind of getting interested. Like, I want to see how exactly that line plays. McMichael, Strome, and Anthony Mantha? Maybe, just maybe. If Connor McMichael breaks out, he maybe gets 30, 40 points on the year. Anthony Mantha maybe gets upwards of 60, 65. And you have Dylan Strome in the middle of all that getting, let's say, 60, 65, maybe even 70 points on the year. If the guy gets anything under, like, 40, I'm going to be disappointed, to be honest. But, like, maybe if he hits that 70-point ceiling that he might be able to have this season with a line as good as that one, that's enough for Chicago to go out there and say, darn it, man, you shouldn't have let that guy go for free. But I don't know. Obviously, it's probably best to be focusing on what's ahead of you rather than what's behind you, but either way, talk in the comments your thoughts about Dylan Strome and the potential redemption story that we could be seeing here with this former third overall pick. Talk in the comments your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this Juraj 99. And Bye.